What's up everyone? Continuing on with this comparison trend, we have the iPhone XR that was just released, and we're going to compare it to the iPhone 6s Plus, which was an iPhone that came out in 2015 in the later part, so about 3 years ago. And I've done a still worth it video on the iPhone 6s Plus, and I pretty much said that it was basically still worth it because it was such a low price point and it was still pretty fast and all these things. And believe it or not, I actually found that my iPhone 6s Plus at a time was faster than not only my iPhone 10 but also my iPhone 8 Plus at opening speed. So let's see how that iPhone compares to the iPhone XR and see whether you should go upgrade your iPhone 6s Plus to the iPhone XR or which one you should get between them and all those things. Now I'll say that technically speaking, if you have as much money to spend or if you're worried about which iPhone is better, the iPhone XR is better in my opinion. It's overall going to last you longer. It has wireless charging and all these cool things, and I believe the battery life is better on the iPhone XR as well. I'll get into that in a second, but I'll say overall that the iPhone XR is an overall better package than the iPhone 6s Plus. But I don't necessarily think it's higher in value per dollar. I think the iPhone 6s Plus gives you more for the money you're going to spend on it, but I'll get into that all in a second. Now looking around the body, we have a little bit of difference between them. Obviously the front, you have a bezel-less design on the iPhone XR where you still have the kind of older design with the iPhone 6s Plus. There's still a lot of bezel on it. You still have the home button with Touch ID, so you're kind of giving up Touch ID and the home button to go to the bezel-less design with Face ID, so that is kind of a little difference there and a kind of a hyperbole, if you will. Now what's interesting is that yes, the iPhone XR feels more premium in the hand, but I feel like the chassis of the iPhone 6s Plus and the iPhone XR is the same. So I've been saying chassis, that's wrong. Apparently, I guess I was totally thinking of the wrong thing. But the chassis of the phone, which is supposed to be the border around the phone, they feel pretty much the same, but the iPhone XR does have the glass back, which supports wireless charging. So you do have that type of advantage there. In terms of the screens and how they look, the iPhone 6s Plus has a 1080p 5.5-inch IPS panel, where the iPhone XR has the 6.1-inch 828 by 1792 IPS panel as well. Now on paper and in real life, I could easily tell that the iPhone 6s Plus has a sharper screen, but the weird thing is that the iPhone XR screen does have True Tone, so it kind of gives the illusion that it is a little bit better than it is, but it really isn't. You can easily tell that the iPhone 6s Plus screen is still noticeably better because it is. Not only is the resolution higher, but the PPI, pixels per inch, is also higher, so you're getting an overall sharper image and less pixels, and basically more pixels on the screen, which means that you can't even see them as much as you can see on the iPhone XR. So I'll definitely say that the iPhone 6s Plus does have the advantage here in terms of the panel itself, but the iPhone XR does have software that kind of enhances it. If they put True Tone on the iPhone 6s Plus, it would be a whole different story, but it's kind of a mixed bag because software really helped out the iPhone XR in terms of the screen department. Now another thing to note is that the iPhone 6s Plus, believe it or not, the phone that came out in 2015 has 3D Touch or Force Touch, where you can force touch and get more information from an app, where the iPhone XR does not have anything like that, which is super crazy. I don't know why they ever did that. They should have just retained it, but it's whatever. So they actually disabled it on the iPhone XR. They didn't even disable it, they completely took it out. That technology does not exist on the iPhone XR. So it is kind of going to affect a few people. If you're going from like an iPhone 6s Plus to an iPhone XR, you're going to miss that. But if you're going from like an iPhone 5s to that, I mean, neither the iPhone 5s or the iPhone XR have it, so you're not really going to miss it. Same thing goes with the iPhone 6 and all those other phones that don't have Force Touch, but it does kind of suck that that is the case. Now, in terms of software, the iPhone XR is definitely going to last you longer. Even if the iPhone 6s Plus lasts another year or even 2 years more, which is not going to happen, the iPhone XR is still going to last longer. So as you guys know, the iPhone XR just got released, so it's on iOS 12. The iPhone 6s Plus was released with iOS 9 originally, and you can upgrade it to iOS 12, and I believe it's going to get one more version of iOS, so it's going to stop at iOS 13, and honestly I don't think it's going to go any further than that, just because I think iOS 13 is going to be a huge redesign, so they could possibly mess it up a little bit, but unless iOS 13 is pretty bad, then they're going to keep it. But I would assume that the iPhone 6s Plus could go to iOS 14, but I don't think so. I think it's going to stop at iOS 13. So with that being said, like I said, the iPhone XR is still going to last you much longer. But if you get the iPhone 6s Plus now, I mean, it's still going to last you until like 2020 pretty much, because it's going to get all of iOS 12, which is going to end in 2019. iOS 13 is going to end in 2020, so you have all that time. So really, like, you can't really go wrong with getting either of these phones in terms of software for a short-term amount of time. But long-term, the iPhone XR is going to last you longer. Now going into the hardware specs of this phone in terms of the speed, the iPhone 6s Plus was released with the Apple A9 chip, a dual-core CPU, and 2GB of RAM, where the iPhone XR has the Apple A12 Bionic chip, a hexa-core CPU, and 3GB of RAM, and specs on paper do say that the iPhone XR is faster, and I did do a speed comparison, but I haven't even done it yet, or I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know which one is faster, but you're going to know in a couple of seconds. But in my opinion, if the iPhone 6s Plus was faster than the 8 Plus and the iPhone 10, there's a possibility that it could be faster than the iPhone XR, but in terms of loading speeds and opening speeds, but I have no idea yet. So instead of me just assuming and everything, let's go ahead and do that speed comparison that I just ran so we can go ahead and get a better idea of this. Now, as I've been saying, I actually messed up my microphone and the battery died, and I actually might just end up getting a new microphone for my camera. So I'm recording this from my computer mic, just like the one you've already been hearing. So I am going to get a new microphone, so don't even worry about that. But enjoy this beat comparison. I'm going to put a song that I made in the background. It's just a quick beat. I'm going to be dropping a mixtape very soon, so links to the song and everything are down in the description. Just go to my SoundCloud and just click on the link. I think the beat is named Coconut Cream Pie, so I'd appreciate if you guys could check that out. But yeah, enjoy this beat comparison. Alright, now that we're back from the speed comparison, let's go take a look at the cameras. Now, both of these phones do have single sensors. They're both 12 megapixels, so technically speaking, on paper they look the same, like in terms of if you just compare them right side by side. They both have optical image stabilization, but I'll tell you right now, the iPhone XR does have the better camera sensor overall, not only because it's updated and all these things, but also because the iPhone XR has software enhancements that makes the camera do things that the iPhone 6s Plus cannot. So one of those things is portrait mode. Now, you can only do portrait mode on humans, which before you could pretty much do on anything, which isn't that big of a deal because it's still an upside and a plus point for the iPhone XR where it's not really existing on the iPhone 6s Plus. So that in and of itself is a huge reason why the iPhone XR is kind of a little bit better, but also because you are able to shoot in more video frame speeds than the iPhone 6s Plus. So you're able to shoot 4K on both cameras, so that's really good. But you are able to shoot 4K at 60 frames and 1080p at up to 240 frames per second, where you can only do 4K at 30 frames on the iPhone 6s Plus and 1080p at up to 120 frames per second. So that in and of itself is a humongous reason to pretty much pick up the iPhone XR. But I'll tell you right now, like if you're in the middle and you're not a huge like photographer or anything like that, you're just like an average person, I think even the 6s Plus camera is pretty good, because when I had the 6s Plus as a daily driver, I thought it was perfectly fine, and then I went to the 7 Plus, I thought it was perfectly fine. I went to the 10, I think it was perfectly fine. So I don't really see a huge upgrade. There is a huge upgrade for sure, I'm not saying there isn't. What I'm saying is that if you're an average person, you just take photos of your family and you have a dedicated, like for me example, I have a DSLR, so I don't even take that many photos on my phone. I usually just take like selfies, just like send them to Snapchat. Like I'll take like an ugly photo of myself and send it. But other than that, like I don't really see myself using an iPhone for a dedicated photography device or anything like that. But I'll definitely say that the iPhone XR is the better camera overall. But to put it in perspective, if the iPhone XR was like a 10 out of 10, 100%, I would probably say the iPhone 6s Plus was like a 80%, maybe like a 75%, 80%, which isn't horrible at all. It's actually pretty decent still, especially when you consider the fact that it came out over 3 years ago. So that's a pretty big deal. The front cameras are a little bit different as well. The iPhone XR has a 7 megapixel front facing camera. The iPhone 6s Plus has a 5 megapixel front facing camera. They both can shoot 1080p, but the iPhone XR does have the advantage. It can shoot at 1080p at up to 60 frames per second, where on the iPhone 6s Plus you can only do 1080p at up to 30 frames per second. So again, a little bit of difference there, but I'll still probably give the edge to the iPhone XR just because you do have that extra video functionality and frame speeds recording, so that's actually pretty cool. Now, another huge thing that I love about the iPhone XR, and I already talked about it in the beginning a little bit, but the iPhone XR does have a little bit of a bigger battery, but because the screen is kind of downsized a little bit in terms of resolution, has a lower PPI, and it has a new optimized chip and everything, the battery life on the iPhone XR is going to be better than the battery life on the iPhone 6s Plus. Even if the battery on the 6s Plus is 100% in terms of battery health, you're still going to have better battery life on the iPhone XR. Now, in terms of the size of the batteries, the iPhone 6s Plus had a 2,750 mAh battery. The iPhone XR has a 2,942 mAh battery. So you're getting about a 200 mAh increase, but you're also getting a lower resolution screen, which is not a good thing, but in terms of battery life it is. You're getting a lower PPI, which again is not a good thing, but in terms of battery life it is. So what I'll say is, yes, the battery life is better on the iPhone XR, but it's not really like crazy amounts better. It's probably like 10% better, I would say, maybe like 15% maximum. You're not going to get like twice the size of the battery or twice the battery life or anything like that. It's going to be noticeably better, but it's not going to be like you're going to be able to go an extra day with it. Maybe if you need that extra 10%, but what I'll tell you is that not only is the battery size bigger, but you also have Qi wireless charging on the iPhone XR, was a humongous thing. The iPhone 6s Plus does not have it. The 7 Plus did not have it. And for a lot of people, I mean, it might not even be that big of a deal, but I'll tell you what, if it was between not having wireless charging or having it, I would definitely choose having wireless charging than not having it. It's really cool. It really makes you feel like futuristic kind of to put your phone there, but I guess that's just me, man. I don't know why I'm so weird like that. Now, some other notable things to note between both these devices: the iPhone XR does have IP67 dust and water resistance, where the iPhone 6s Plus does not. So the iPhone XR, you're able to dump into 1 meter of water for 30 minutes, where the iPhone 6s Plus didn't really have any IP certification, but it did have a little bit of water sealing around the device, so you were able to kind of dip it in water and take it out really quickly. It didn't have any certification, so I wouldn't even test it, but the iPhone XR is certified, so if you get some water on or anything like that, don't even worry about it. Now, if you go over that 1 meter, then there's kind of a problem, but yeah, you won't even have to worry about it, in my opinion. Like I said, the screen has a lower resolution. It does not have Force Touch, but you do get a True Tone display, so that is kind of important. And you do have Qi wireless charging on the iPhone XR. So in my opinion, is the iPhone XR worth the upgrade from the iPhone 6s Plus? What I'll tell you is that yes, if you have an unlimited amount of money, if you have an upgrade or whatever, the iPhone XR is a noticeable upgrade. You will get a couple new features that you don't have on the 6s Plus, but you're also kind of giving up some things too. I mean, you're giving up Force Touch, you're giving up the headphone jack, which is a lot of people might need. You're giving up the home button or Touch ID, whatever you like, and a lot of people might like those things still. So I would say you're giving up more hardware than software. The software is pretty much the same. I mean, you're going gesture based versus like the physical home button based, but what I'll say is, now categorize this in a different couple ways. Let's say you currently don't have either of these phones. You want to see whether you want to save money or get the iPhone XR. Definitely go get a used iPhone 6s Plus. You can probably find one for like $150, way less than $200. I would get one of those and I would use it for maybe like a couple more months, even like up until like June or July. The prices for the iPhone XR are definitely going to go down in the used market as more people buy them. So you could always buy the iPhone 6s Plus, get a little bit less depreciation, because if you get a brand new iPhone XR, you're going to lose more money than getting a used iPhone 6s Plus in the long run. So I would still recommend you to go that route. Sell the iPhone 6s Plus in a couple months, or even like in June, July, like I said, and pick up an iPhone XR in the used market as well. Or you could just go buy an iPhone XR right now and not even do that. Or if you have an iPhone 6s Plus right now, I would still probably recommend you to keep it for a little bit longer, unless there's like some time restriction, like there's an upgrade only temporarily or something. But even in that case, I'll tell you, just wait a little bit longer. You can definitely wait. The 6s Plus isn't that big of an upgrade to an iPhone XR. And if you want to save even more money and get an even better phone, I would recommend selling the iPhone 6s Plus right now and buying a used iPhone X. I feel like the iPhone X is a much better phone than the iPhone XR in a lot of ways. So I would still kind of recommend you to do that too. So those are my 2 cents. And that is my opinion. So I could be wrong. You know, a lot of people might have a different opinion on it. So I'd love to hear yours. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to pick up an iPhone 6s Plus. I link them through Amazon. So if you have an Amazon account, you can buy them. It's on Amazon's website. So I don't see why that would be confusing. I don't even know why I said that. But yeah, if you buy anything through that link, you actually help support the channel and helps me make videos like this and do more giveaways and stuff. So I definitely appreciate that. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button. That'll mean so much. But definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber we get really does count, so it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. That is also linked down below. I do a lot of iOS comparisons on that channel, so I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.